Hi, welcome to Legends and Lore episode 5. I'm Anna
I'm
Meyer,
on.
and with me is.
Mike Bridges.
hmm
Uh, so we had a week off.
Yep, we have to. Sorry for that. It was kind of too much election work and a whole bunch of other stuff, and I had Patreon and God knows what. So it was kind of a little bit too much to be able to get this. But this week we're here. And we were supposed to have a guest. If you looked at the ad, we were supposed
Mhm.
to have Joe Block, Greyhawk Grognard, but he had some family issues or emergencies that he needed to take care of. So unfortunately, he couldn't be on. So you have to live with us two again.
Real life happens.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Which reminds me, get better, Leakum, the learned.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I hope that you can. Yep.
So as people are rolling in now, just to remind you, myself, I have a Greyhawk blog, greyhawkery.blogspot.com,
Mm-hmm.
where
Yep.
I talk about all kinds of Greyhawk goodness, all kinds of crazy stuff, comics, articles, maps, you name it.
Yep, a lot of diverse, awesome Greyhawk content, and something that because now we have to quickly come up with things that we needed get in the show,
Ah,
and we have
yeah,
some
what's our
additions.
topic?
Yep, thankfully I have a huge map update to talk about that I worked on for almost a month now since
She's
the.
been busy.
Yep, the last, and that is one thing that I've stuck in some night works, and I put almost a whole nighter, a couple of days just after yesterday after the election. I realized that now I have time, so I set day and almost the entire night and worked through. So there is some cool things, and I also have some ideas for the future about changing things on the map, so that I will talk about a bit later. But we have you have an interesting topic that you were going to post about on your blog, or maybe already have done.
Yeah, it's already on there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the topic is about Rhennee,
Mm-hmm.
everyone's favorite barge folk of Greyhawk.
Yep.
Um, but before we get into that, another thing I want to knock out real quick is this news I saw a few weeks ago. Someone at Wizards announced something about a new,
That's
like
true.
leaked and setting.
Exactly, new game setting. Yeah. There's rumors about something being released next year. I think it is.
Yeah, and I always go for that
Yep.
bait. But
Mm-hmm.
this time I'm
Yep.
like, nope, nope, not
Yep.
even. I'm not going to think
Mm-hmm.
about it.
So
Too
what's
much.
your will it be Greyhawk next year?
No, no,
Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
not going to bite.
Not that
No,
much. You're not going to.
no.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But I think what we were talking about a little while ago was
Yep.
the progression here. Yeah, clickbait. The
Mm-hmm.
progression here is since like Mordenkainen's
Mm-hmm. Tome of
tome
Foes.
and
Yep.
all the books before it. What we're seeing here is that they're putting a little bit of emphasis on outer planar stuff. So to me, the money on a setting book would be Planescape.
Yep, I agree. That is, yeah, for many reasons. First of all,
Oh,
because it ties on to different products, but it's also the hub and the gateway to other settings. So it kind of opens up the
mm,
possibility that you can tie in further things, with City of Sigil being the city of portals and stuff. So
yeah. Okay. Geek Dice says two settings. Well, I don't know that.
that might be a bit, well, they might fall into the
Now
old
I got
TSR thing
two
of
tries to be
releasing
right.
lots of
Yeah.
settings, and I love it. So
Mm.
yeah, but yeah, I think that's a
Don't know much
wise
about
choice from them
Ravnica.
to choose, and it's also a kind of a manageable setting. Is not enormous in that way. If they concentrate on Sigil and a few other things, then they can kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I don't know if anyone else has any wishes or ideas they think might be out there. Ravnica is kind of the new shiny, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think I've been used to being underwhelmed by their announcements.
Yeah, the
So
announcements are big, but then there comes one project, one book, or one product that is usually very good, great, but it's not the setting boxes and that enormous amount
Uh,
of stuff that we saw before. It's more like quality rather than depth, so to speak. It's production quality,
yeah.
especially. It's kind of cool. It looks great, has great art, and also I think very suitable for the community and the people that play 5e. So yeah.
But we'll cover more of that, I guess, next time.
Yep. And we
We
also
have
have to kind of
go
tie
on
in
here.
what are the ties between Sigil, Planescape, and Greyhawk back in the day too. And we have to
Uh,
do planes and portals and stuff from Greyhawk too. Then.
yeah. Uh, to answer Bavix,
Yeah.
yeah, if they do a new Greyhawk, they gotta go backwards. They can't go forwards, I don't think, because there's just too much baggage
Yeah,
forward.
that's true. Yeah, they
Go
might
back to the
simply.
start,
Mm-hmm.
then
Yeah.
reboot, reboot,
Mm-hmm.
reboot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, anyhow, Rhennee,
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Tell us
to jump.
everything about the Rhennee.
It's first off, one, I don't know everything about the Rhennee.
No one does. They're kind of enigmatic and hard to get into. That's part of the story.
They're from They're immigrants who have traveled from the land of Rop. Would you say Rope? Rop?
Yeah, rope or rock. Yeah, something like that. Yep.
Yes, the moist gypsies.
Ropey or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Rapan.
Yep.
Uh, I think let's see. I think it was the Player's Guide to Greyhawk said that they arrived in the Adri Forest.
Oh,
So
the
they started
Adri
out.
Forest. Okay.
They started out on wagons,
Mm-hmm.
like your typical
And
gypsy.
there's
Yeah,
still the brethrens, the Atloi, are
yeah, and
the
they're
wagon.
still
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right, right. So much like when the Sewell left this, their empire, and then they split up. The Rhennee had a little split,
Yeah.
so the Atloy stayed in the wagons. There's very very few of them.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of them took to the water
Yeah.
because they were being oppressed, I guess, or chased away by the Great Kingdom and whatnot. Anyhow, if you go to my blog, I have a long, boring uh,
It's
thing
not
I wrote
boring.
up on.
I'm sure it's not boring. Yeah.
Now there's math involved. But anyhow, I was talking about the population of the Rhennee. According to the Living Greyhawk Journal, issue 2,
Mm-hmm.
which you can buy on DM's Guild now, according to an article in there by Lance Havermail, really good article on the Rhennee, probably the best article you're going to find. He says there, and I don't see this quote anywhere else, there's 5,000 Rhennee.
That's
All
not
right,
that
so
many.
that was my first thought. Now,
Yeah.
people in the chat, do you think 5,000 is too low or just right?
But that now comes also because the population has been a hot topic in Greyhawk circles for years. Because there's some notice, if I remember correctly, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the older, especially the older books, they don't count population as all individuals, only the individuals that are like could be soldiers or the adult population. They don't count elderly and maybe
Right.
even not even women, but only like soldier population or something. So that might also be an issue.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, anyhow, I crunched the numbers. I did some math based
Yeah,
on Gary Gygax's encounter tables for Rhennee, because he breaks down the
yeah.
whole family
Mm-hmm.
from the warriors to the women to the children,
Ah,
how many
okay.
are on each boat,
Yeah.
and then when you take the number of like families there are, and then you just multiply it, then I
Mm-hmm.
came up with a figure that's like 10 times higher than
50,000 sound. Yeah, because we're talking about the Flannies as large as Europe and North America, or it's a large place. It's definitely the size of Europe and then some. And 5,000 people, that's nothing.
let's see, to answer some of the chat questions real quick. Bavix, they arrived around 150 CY.
Yeah.
And
But we
let's
have,
see,
yeah. Nebula is interesting. Consider we never see them. I guess 5,000 sounds right. And that, yeah.
it could be hidden.
And
Yeah,
it's also up to each campaign how much Rhennee you want. You might want them to have a kind of an obscure, almost unseen curiosity, or you want them to be a mainstay in the campaign. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, uh, Guntaka, yes, they're primarily on the near dive lake, and we surmise in all the large rivers surrounding it,
Yep. I'm
depending on the
switching to
weather.
the map view here so we
Okay.
can talk about the different areas.
Now,
Yeah.
as for Avatar, you're saying that they travel in small groups. Yes, but the reading also says that there are Rhennee lords, nobles, and those families cluster around those nobles, and they tie their ships together in little floating villages.
Hmm.
So there are a lot of them, and there's like a bunch of nobles. So the math starts spinning out of control from there, and then 5,000, quickly looks like a small number. Um, and Ryan Glade, you're right about the medieval versus fantasy populations.
Yeah.
I tried to look into demographics and things, and if you take their starting year of 150, and I was trying to figure out how much. See, they would have been around for 450 years. How much population growth they would have? It might not be a whole lot of a difference. So they probably arrived in a large cluster, and then by that time they grew to 50,000. But to think that they have 5,000 now after being around for 450 years also seems kind of low to me.
Yeah.
So, like I said, math, boring topic. But the point of the article was to point out that I think people should play Rhennee more. That it's an
Yeah.
overlooked
Have
choice.
you dive into any kind of game mechanics and stuff related to the Rhennee?
I haven't. No, I haven't really looked into it. I suspect, and I haven't had a chance to look at this stuff, but there's a convention group called. Um, boy, now I'm just having a brain fart. The Greyhawk Reborn.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The ones that are now running a kind of an
They
organized play
they
for
they've had a
Greyhawk.
fifth
Yeah.
edition group for
Hmm.
longer than Greyhawk Channel's been around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I
Hmm.
think they did the ethnicity you know stat adjustments and things
Yeah.
for Sewell and
Hmm.
Orids and
Hmm.
um, otherwise if you look to the older editions, there are rules on making Rhennee stat wise. So
I don't
take
think
your pick.
I've had Rhennee in my campaigns just as a curiosity around a little bit and more like local flavor, but they haven't been part really of the story and stuff. So I was thinking, do we have things like Rhennee weapons, Rhennee magic, and
That's
spells and
that
stuff?
living. Okay, yes, that Living Greyhawk journal issue number 2
Hmm.
article has 2 new classes. One is the Veth,
The fifth,
which is the
okay.
wise woman, the fortune
Ah,
teller
okay,
of
yeah.
Rhennee,
Hmm.
and the other one is the Darka Guard, which is like the family champion. He's like a harpoon
Hmm.
wielding fighter.
Yeah.
Uh, as to unique spells, I'm not really sure, but there are 2 unique classes.
Yeah, yeah, because from reading in the Gary Gygax the Gord books and stuff, where they both the Rhennee and the Atloy plays parts in the parts of the story, and Gord he kind of hangs out with the Rhennee and then he moves on and hangs out with the Atloy, and to me they don't seem to be much of magic users, but roguish,
And I think they're irreligious too.
yeah, exactly, and roguish and certainly the kind of fighter rogue kind of combinations and then the wise woman and stuff that seems to be tie
Yeah.
in perfectly with the stories.
Now, to answer Avatar,
Hmm.
he's saying that, or no, not Avatar, Bavix. Bavix is asking about Rhennee women in the glossography,
Yeah.
this old book. Gary Gygax has rules down here at the bottom on how to roll up a Rhennee character. And
Ooh.
in it, it says for females, you roll 6d6, take the three highest for
And
charisma.
yeah, and you also have comeliness is a Greyhawk stats that we should
And
devote
commoness is
some.
a
Yeah,
Greyhawk thing too.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
But I'm just
that's
saying,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
66, take the
Yep.
three highest.
Yep. So
It's
yep. So there is something to that. Yep.
play
But
Rhennee. There's rules for it.
yep. Mm-hmm.
Uh, psionics. I don't know about psionics with
Yeah,
them.
I've stayed away from it, but it's been a
Yeah.
mainstay, especially in first edition AD&D. There was like a psionics part of the DMG and stuff. That
Let's see. Catching up here, Bavix asked about Zoran Saraith. Yeah, he's one of those evil Rhennee lords that I think works for IUs.
yeah.
So yeah, just imagine like him. You got that guy, and there's potentially as many as 100 Rhennee lords. So there's plenty of room for dungeon masters to create their own Rhennee lords and the whole
Yeah.
storyline of Rhennees.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
now I'm interested. What's the geographical? Where can we normally find the?
Okay.
I'm going to move to the map display again here. From what I've judged is that Near Div is kind of the nerve center for Rhennee
Uh huh.
culture, but because
It's a huge lake.
yeah, and it's also accessible. There's a lot of rivers and
Mhm.
stuff, and its central location. There's river flowing in and river flowing out. So and it's a
Well,
large lake too. So yeah.
yeah. As they are neutral, I think they've been used to uh, using all the surrounding ports, no
Yeah,
matter
yeah. So they
what
go from Radiguet
cities
City to
or
Divers to
sure,
yeah, to all the major ports and do trade and stuff like that, I guess.
yeah. Now in the city of Greyhawk, down the river, there's actually a Rhennee quarter. So the Rhennee do have a huge, Greyhawk presence.
Ah, yeah. That.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so if they're in Greyhawk, they're in Divers, they're in Willip,
Mm-hmm.
they're in, you
Yeah,
know,
will
the
it
Bandit
then
Kingdom.
move up here? Yeah, because if we go around near Div, there will be a little bit. Near Div has a whole number of big port cities that it's major trade hubs. So we have Greyhawk and Elmshire, and we have Divers, and then we have the Foriondi coast with Willip as another major city. I guess that's
Hey,
Rhennee. Yeah.
take a zoom up to the northeast near Dave. Goon says that in the Adventure Fright at Tristor, there's a Rhennee villain who's in the Theocracy of the Pale.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah.
so I'm curious how far inland that is.
It's if
So,
we if we continue up the
Radigan.
Artonsamae river here,
Okay.
we can we yeah and so Radiga City is one of these big trade cities, and then we move up here and we have Saresh, and then we have Jedbridge, the next city, and then Stowink, another yeah we talked about it before, and then we
Fairly
start
far
yeah
in.
yeah, and then we go and I I haven't read particularly, but I think that the Artonsamae is such a large river that it's probably
Yeah,
navigable all the way. In my campaign I make it navigable all the way up to Rockroost up here. So that means that they can probably use their barges up and down the river.
they're
So
trading or
yeah,
doing some no good.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
that
makes
means that
perfect sense.
they can and Theocracy of the Pale is doesn't have in nowadays it doesn't have a city exactly on the river
On
because
the
it yeah,
river.
but they can certainly trade through here at Crystal Watch, and then they especially back in the time they probably had good connections with Duchy of Ten before the Ayus invasions and whatnot. So Red Span is probably another, and Rock Roost. So yeah, so it's perfectly logical for Rhennee to end up in those areas too.
So if there's
Oh, and you have
and so
Yol River. There is,
y'all
yeah, exactly. You have the Yol River that is probably Wintershiven is a metropolis, probably for a reason that you can probably navigate up river to Heatherly and Wintershiven too. So, yep.
okay. So more Rene. is obviously, I think, a good thing. If they can hit all these rivers in
Yeah.
every direction,
Hmm.
even into Ayus, if you're an evil one like
Exactly, and
Zorans,
exactly that
there's got to be
means
more than 5,000.
yeah, and that means that the Veng River is open for them too, because they can be kind of have reasonable relations with both the Furundi side
Yeah,
and the IU side, and
just
that means that
smuggling.
they
You
can
know,
be useful for both sides, both as spying and sending messages and smuggling and whatnot. So yeah. And that means that the Still Lake is open for them too. I guess the problem with the Still is that there's not
right?
much trade going on Still. There's only real two or three cities or metropolises. You have Doraka, which has obvious problems, and
Now,
then
if there
yeah,
was, well, I'm thinking once you get that far and now you're on another lake
yeah,
like Wyestal,
hmm,
then we would know. Someone would have written one of these books if there was Rhennee on those lakes.
exactly, yeah, yeah. But on the other hand, Still might be a way to hide away if you're just going to fish and
Huh.
survive.
Yeah.
There's like, especially the west coast of there's
Very
a lot of
uninhabited.
coves and away from civilization and stuff. So if you
That's
just want to
true.
hang out and survive, that might be a good place to be, so to speak.
Ah, Geek Dice is playing in Free Andi. Awesome. Are you inspired by Game of Thrones by chance?
Hmm. Yep, yep, that's
So
really
yeah,
cool.
Rhennee. We could go on about Rhennee all day.
Yep.
Uh,
And there is, when we talk about other rivers, one river that I think could be an interesting, Reni, is the Nesser, because the Nesser is kind of the long way to go from Nerdiv to the ocean, and you have to go through Nat Marsh, and it's kind of it's a difficult river to traverse for trade and stuff. That's why the Salinton and Greyhawk is
yeah,
the trade connection between Nerdiv and the ocean. But for the Rhennee, the Nesser might be interesting. Nesser is a wide river,
yeah.
easily navigable.
That
There's a lot of hiding places in it, and
makes sense.
yeah, so that
And the
might be.
barges
Hmm.
to
Exactly,
get through
and
the. Yeah, yeah.
you can go. So and it's also flat country. It's going flat country from the ocean to near Div, so it's probably possible to use a barge and go up and down. So the Reni has lots of potential to reach kind of wide areas, lots of areas of the Flanies that way. And then another obvious river to go up is the Velverdiva.
A
It's
long one.
yeah, it's a long river that is wide and probably in I think the widest, biggest river in in the Flanies in many ways, the longest river that is navigable. From sources say it's navigable all the way up to around here. When you start reaching, it's not navigable with
Hmm.
larger ships all the way up to the parent land, but so they can't bring their barges that way that far, but they can definitely bring their their barges up along the flat country here. Okay.
Maybe they would make good ferrymen.
Mm-hmm.
Like taking
Yeah.
people from
Mm-hmm.
High Folk or
Yeah.
Pearland
You
down
you
to
can pay
Brandy.
yeah pay some money and then go with them to places. Yep. Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, fascinating stuff.
Yep. So
They
what do we know more about the other kind of what kind of adventures and stuff could we set the Reni in? If you
Rhennee.
or Reni campaigns or stuff like that, what kind of.
I think if you're doing Rhennee, the obvious thing for me is kind of playing on the war angle
Mm-hmm.
that they are essentially playing both sides. They can go back and forth across that lake, dealing with IUs and
Yeah.
dealing with
So the
good,
spy, the intrigue, the behind the scenes
yeah,
kind of
just a lot
yeah.
of
Mm-hmm.
shady stuff.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm glad, Bavix. Um,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's perfect. If we can help out with ideas and inspiration for new
hmm,
campaigns, that's exactly that's one of the main things with the
from
show. So
Russia
thank you.
with
Yep.
love. uh, Taking a break from Renee real quick, I want to
Yep.
jump back to a question that old Two Wolves had. I know
Hmm.
you're new to Greyhawk, and that's great. You need to check out some of Anna's maps on ghmaps.net.
Yeah, I'm
Correct?
going to
Yeah.
I'm going to zoom in,
Yeah.
and here is so you can take a screenshot of. I'm going to show here. So here is the links you can go to either my Patreon if you want to support
Mm.
me making more Greyhawk maps, or if you just want to download and take a look at the stuff that I've
Yeah.
done. Hmm.
So she can hook you up with all the maps you need. And if you go to my site, Greyhawkery, just Google that, I guess. I have a lot of uh, primers for starting
Hmm.
Greyhawk campaigns. Thanks for the bits, Avatar. You're the man.
Awesome, thank you.
Uh, yeah, Anna has the most detailed and amazingly researched maps Greyhawk out there. Anyhow, to get back to Two Wolves' question, if he's still with us, I don't know.
We'll see.
Um,
Yep.
anyhow, he was asking about unique magic items, and that kind of grabbed me, and so I
Yeah.
jotted that down earlier about how he saying something like the you feel really important when you have this unique magic item. It doesn't have to be an artifact. I don't imagine, but it's like, oh, plus one sword, oh, plus one dagger, bleh.
It should be
you
something
know,
with a
uh,
name and some special
something with a
abilities
name
and
and a
features.
special
Yep.
power, right?
Hmm.
There's Sarah Sinus.
Oh, awesome.
Welcome, man.
Thank you. Yep.
Uh, so yeah, I think in Greyhawk Adventures hardback is a really good book for that. It has all these
Yep.
really unique Greyhawk magic
Hmm.
items named after different countries and
Yep.
things. And so it's oh, it's fun. You might have a magic sword, but you have the sword of Grand March. And that sounds cooler.
Hmm.
So that's all I was going to say.
Yep. So we don't know. Well, we don't know any particularly special Rhennee items and that come across, but
Um,
they don't seem to be that much of magic users.
no.
Maybe they don't have any, and they don't have a formal kind of society, and that means that they might not have that many. They don't have a court wizard who can kind of
No,
and
it's
that
not their
special,
thing.
yeah. So they
They're
probably buy
very
their stuff rather
low
than yeah,
magic,
and
low
trade it.
tech.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but hey, if someone wants to take a stab and
Yeah.
write an article or something on
Yep. Hmm.
Rhennee, unique Rhennee stuff, go for it.
Yep. Definitely.
Um, let's see. So you had some map stuff
Yes, I have
covered?
I've done quite a lot of work the past couple of weeks, so now I think it's time to show some of the new stuff. And for first a primer for those of you who haven't followed my work before, and I've started this Greyhawk map, and now it's time to I'm going to switch to the map again. So this map I started working on 20 years ago, almost to the day. And so I've been
20
working on
years.
it for 20 years ago. I started in late 1998. So it's almost exactly to the day 20 years ago since I started it. So now and I've finished a version that covered this whole area, what is like 4 years ago. And now I've been done small corrections and additions and versions of
Sounds
it every year
tweaking.
since. But now it's time, thanks to my patrons, I now have time that I can actually sit down and do a lot of work. So now I've actually upgraded the map. I've invested hundreds of hours now, several hundred hours, into first of all revamp the terrain. So the version you see here is the latest brand new version that I finished a few hours ago.
A
And
few hours.
yep, early this morning I kind of nailed it together, so to speak. And there's still things to add on it, but there is, first of all, I've changed the terrain. And let me just open and see what it used to look like before. Now you get to see some of the boring. I'll do this first while I'm opening stuff here. and it used to be kind of garish and colors that looked like they
Hmm.
were from the 90s and stuff. So it was useful, and I've used it for like 20 years, but this is what the map used to look like. And I thought it was time to upgrade it a bit. So I went from this,
Polish.
yeah, and then I kind of polished it, and now this is the first real good result of this polish. So I've kind of upgraded, so the colors are much more natural,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
they yeah, it looks much more like the real thing. That was the
Not as
intent.
bright.
Yeah, it was too
Yeah.
garish, and it's
Yeah.
much more subdued, but all the information is there, and then some, so to speak, because this is even more detailed. And and now for the latest update, the major thing in this update is that I've taken a closer look at one of the neglected areas. The last bit of the map that I did was the Baklunish West, and it was, if we look
Okay.
at the what it used to look like, the old Baklunish West, you can see here that it's kind of uniform green, kind of sandy green, boring color. So
All
and
right.
deserty. So I simply took this and then I tweaked it a bit. So now I think it looks much more varied, and it still has that harsh, uh, because this is the area that was devastated in the invoked, the twin cataclysm. So it has the it's a harsh, bladed, even magically destroyed part of the world. So
Nebbiolo wants to know if you can still use the old brighter colors.
yes, there will be I will make a PDF version with the old map in the background. So yeah, but it will take a little while
Yeah.
because there are some colors I probably need to tweak back in order to do it. So yeah, so I will make that, but it will probably be the last version of this, the old colors. But yeah, I've got a few
Old map,
requests of the
new
old.
map, and then the old map
Yeah.
again. Jeez.
So they will not be destroyed. So I'll see, get the new content on the old terrain too. But this is the major, and one of the major is that I've actually latest update is that I actually read more of the material for the Baklunish West, and this area here is wasn't that devastated, just like up in Seif along the coast and stuff. That was far away enough apparently from the cataclysm to be spared. And the same thing here. So it talks about forest, especially the Yanasib Islands were forested, and there's a volcano, but apparently that volcano is cut off by the map here. So
I think the backloonish magic was stronger.
yeah, yeah. So they got spared a little bit. So yep. So maybe they struck first, or was it the Sul that struck first? Was it the Sul? Yeah,
Um,
I forgot. We talked about that
uh,
on the first show. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think the soul struck
Yeah.
first.
So anyway, they so this area now is a bit more greenery, and I've added the Bakuri coast, and I've also the Bakuri coast. They had a shield that someone did, that had a hippocampus, but I didn't like the hippocampus, so I took inspiration from a bunch of other hippocampus and made it kind of a sea
Oh,
dragon,
I see.
seahorse kind of thingy,
Cool.
and added. So that's one of the heraldry that I've added last. And then I added the Salakesh Cove. That's the name of
Yeah.
this cove. And so that's some of the areas here. And this needs to be, there are names and stuff to be added here. And I've
Cool.
also added pennants. Pennant for the islands. They don't have
Nice.
shields because they are sea-based warriors, so they don't
C.
use, yeah.
Yeah. C
So I use
uses.
it like
Yeah.
the flags they will have on their ships instead. So the Yanasib Islands have it, and also the if we go up here, the
Thanks for the
Arafat.
sub, Geek Dice.
Oh, awesome!
Another
Yep.
another
Mm-hmm.
follower for the Growth channel.
Yep.
Awesome.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Shane will be very happy. He will be so pleased. So that's the major changes up here.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
yep, and so now I think that this part of the map now is up to the same standard as the rest of the map, and it's not neglected as much. And if you look at all your favorite hangout
Mm-hmm.
in the world,
Yeah.
all has gotten just a touch of harshness down in the south, and
Ooh.
then it's going
Yeah, you
toward,
can't make it look
yeah,
prettier.
yeah.
It's not possible.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just supposed to. So it is no. It got. It's still the way it
If it
used to
wasn't for
be.
that shield, there'd be no color at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the
Nice
plains and
pick.
the harsh hills and then the mountains on either side. So yep. And then we have there's some new heraldry inserted in here. One that I found that is kind of
Uh-huh.
cool is the Hands of Light. Those are the Knights of
It's like,
Poltus of the Grand Marsh, and the Hands of Light. And their shield was described in the Living Greyhawk campaign as being the Owl of the Night Watch with the moon of Poltus on top of it, so to speak.
okay.
So yeah, so it's a combination of that. So and
Clever.
and also because the seems to be the theme in the in Bissell and others is to have the top. So some of the other shields, and if we switch to now, I'm going to show you something that normally I don't. I only show my
Right.
patrons, and if we go to my campaign map, I have more stuff on it here. So we'll see what they look like. So I put the Hands of Light and the Knights of Watch, and I also have the this is the city of Pelak, and this is the headquarters of the Night's Watch in Pelak. So I made a special shield for them, so to speak. And then we have the Grand March shield. That's someone else did that. I'm not sure if it was Gary Gygax or if it's done later, but so I kept the theme here is to put the symbol, the identifying symbol on top of the other one. So, and other news is that add-ons and changes to that I've done that will be in the latest version of the map is that some of the very oldest material is something that I neglected and didn't make it to the map, and it should have been for a long,
And
long
what's that?
time. And one of the coolest thing is here. There is a meteor, a big crater here, and that was a meteor that was struck to try and wipe out the demi plane of Lysandrid. And there was or yeah, there's anyway there was a meteor that struck there that is described both in the Doom Grinder and the Star Cairns and the Crypt
Not
of
sure I remember
Lysandrid.
this.
Yeah, so there is a yeah, so I had a lengthy debate with and got some a lot. Debate is the wrong word. Brian Bloomcloth, he helped me the other day, and we kind of went back and forth where to place it, and this kind of fits fairly well because
Damn.
they're different sources. It's about
Hmm.
50. I made it big because it's a fantasy world, so we don't have small
Okay.
iffy things here. There's some beefy
Hey.
things here. Yep. And then we have the added some rivers here because these rivers are actually in Stark Cairns on the map there, so I had to add them. And the pits of Asag Seal are now moved over here because that fits the story. They're not over here in the middle of the mountains. They're actually closer to the port of Sarak because that's where they are connected to. And 80 to 100 miles in between didn't cut it, so we have to move them closer. And this is actually where they're described in the text to be. And then Sean K. Reynolds, he for an adventure, he put them up in the mountain on the map, but that doesn't fit the original story. So
No.
I moved them back here, down here again, where they're described to be. They're not placed on a map down here, but they're described in the text to be down here. So I went with the text rather than with the map. And then the other one
Cool.
is that we have the star cairns, 4 of them here. There is a 5th star cairn in the story, but that's some sort of
Yes.
plane hopping thingy that goes around, so it's not on the map. So these things are here. So there are more rivers, and then I've taken me some artistic freedom, or like the term that I invented the other day, cartographic exuberance. I've,
Oh,
I've done some cartographic exuberance that I think should be there for various reasons. And now we need to go up up to Wystill and the Horned Lands and the lands of Ayus. And this is an area of the map that normally is very under detailed. There is hardly any details at all. This is an empty void basically. And so I added in some rivers that I think is appropriate this time. So we have a river here, and they are
Nice.
not big enough to be
So
should be on. Yeah, so it basically
yeah,
drains the western fell reef here and this area here. There's some hilly, rugged terrain here just south east of the Oppicum River. I don't know how
I'll
to pronounce
pick
that.
'em.
Yeah,
I'll pick
Oppicum,
'em.
Oppicum. Yeah. So I added a river here because this area here always looked to me like it should have a river that flows out into the
It
Wystill.
sure does.
And then we have there's more rivers here and rivers here that drains out into the Wystill, and the same thing, there's small rivers here. And one of the reasons is that since this could have, in my opinion, be kind of prime farmland, but I take it as it is kind of slightly swampy here and there, and there are small tiny rivers and stuff that makes it difficult to traverse, which there's a reason that this was kind of neglected far enough that the lord of the previous the official dad, so to speak, of Ayus, where he came from, the yeah. So
Nebula wants to name the river. Name a
okay,
river.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I will
For a
definitely,
contest.
yeah, I will definitely name it for my campaign, and then we'll see. I haven't done so yet, but there is plenty of little rivers here. I've added some
Yeah.
more here to, yeah.
Ryan Glade had a really good question or
Okay.
comment, that
Mm-hmm.
is,
Yeah.
about the realism in your map, Greyhawk map compared to Forgotten Realms. Does Forgotten Realms have anywhere near the level of detail
No,
you think
I haven't seen anything that is
data?
on this detail level. No, I haven't.
I
So
mean, not that's made, but do you think there's the data out there to make, like, if you decided tomorrow, you know what, I'm going to make a Faerun map?
yeah.
You think it's the same level of
Oh yeah,
information?
you could definitely, yeah, there's definitely that wealth of details so you can make a map like this
Yeah.
project. Oh, definitely. In some ways, I think there's even more material for
Hmm.
Faerun than it is for Greyhawk over the years. You
And then
probably
you'd have
run
to read
into,
everything.
yeah, you run into the same problem as Greyhawk, maybe even worse, because there's probably more contradictions in
Ooh.
the Faerun. I'm not an expert on Faerun by any means, but I'm fairly skilled at understanding how campaigns evolve, so to speak, because I've
Yeah.
studied in this sense. So there might be even more contradictions built in. But there's one obvious advantage mapping the Faerun that we don't have in Greyhawk today, is that we have
What's
the
that?
utmost authority, because we
Oh,
have the creators of the setting. So you can just ask. Oh, now I've got the name. I should
Ed
always.
Greenwood.
Ed Greenwood, sorry, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Ed Greenwood, you can
But
ask him, and he can be the
I always
ultimate.
had a yeah,
Yeah,
I always had a feeling Ed Greenwood still stayed in a comfort zone, like Shadowdale, Sword Coast.
yeah,
Um, that I think a lot of, and I might be wrong, but I think a lot of the modern Forgotten Realms is probably R.A. Salvatore.
that's true. Yeah, so you have yeah, you have a lot of, but yeah, so you have a lot of wealth, a lot of materials. You can definitely do a map like this, map the Faerun
Yeah.
this way, or definitely. And I'm not
Now
sure if
switching
Faerun
gears.
is spherical on a
Yeah.
planet or if it's flat.
Oh,
And
no,
yeah,
that's don't want to
bec
get into
yeah. So because
that.
flat worlds are easier to map for obvious reasons that way until you reach the edge, because that's when you have to kind of invent things and all sorts of stuff.
Jeff Grubb, yeah.
Yeah.
Switching gears, in the chat, they were asking, what areas of the Greyhawk map have you never adventured in?
Oh, I haven't been in the Baklunish West much at all.
Mhm.
That's one area I haven't been to, and let's switch to this one, because this one is yeah. So I haven't been down to let's go
Not
here.
in the West
Yeah,
much.
this is the we take the note map here. That's the
Guys,
quickest to go in. Yeah, so my I basically adventured in the area around. Now I'm going to use one of the
So you've never ran Vecna Lives
and the funny thing is that as written, so to speak, I have
as
only
written?
ran Hamlet. That's it. I've
Okay.
never run any other
The rest of it's
module.
all just
Yeah,
source
yeah.
material.
I've
Okay.
just I because I run basically campaigns that are
Okay.
yeah. So I never run them as written. So of course I've been in this area quite a bit. This was my first love, so to speak. We played around here, and then we added the Celine Lord and down here. So this is
Hmm.
the
Yep. Same
area.
here.
Yeah, played. So that was how we started to play, and then we played through the Greyhawk Wars
All right.
and stuff. So then we played for
All right.
Yundi Veluna, and we were probably around this area, and we had one special. It was around Molag. I detailed Molag, and we had a whole bunch of adventures in Molag quite a bit. And then I skipped the Shieldlands actually. And then this area. So Furyundi, part of Veluna, and Molag. We spent probably 3-4 years adventuring here during the
Nice.
when we played out the Greyhawk Wars, and then we played when I after I moved to California. We had I was mapping this area over in Alyssa, and so I sat down and we had a campaign that actually played out in Rel Devon and its area. So that way we played in roughly this area. So that we played in that area for like 5 years
I
in
like that
this.
you know the areas and how many years you did
Yeah.
and
So
gamed in them.
yep. So this area was we played in around the Bonewood and the city of Reldevin and stuff. That was the so these are the main areas. I've done a few kind of short hops here and there, but this is the
Sure.
area I've played. The rest of it is basically almost untouched in my gaming, and I've gamed in Greyhawk for 30 years plus. And these are the areas. So I have lots of areas left. And my next campaign, now I'm going to my next campaign, the future campaign, it's going to be in, now I'm going to zoom in, it's going to be in this area here. That little area. My next campaign is going to be in this little area. That was probably the wrong color, but we can move in. And that is
Yeah.
the area of Shieldlands. That's my upcoming campaign. And now we're going to zoom in a bit here, and here I have detailed this area very much in on my this
Something
is my
about that
campaign.
area that hooks you.
Yes, it does, because this is my campaign will be set in 98, 99, 598, 599. So it's about
Okay.
10, 12, 13 years after the war.
Down the road. Yeah.
Yeah, so now things are settled down, and in yeah, we have some time, so I'm going to detail the plot. I'm not going to give away
All right.
the actual any too much of the campaign, but the kind of the setting for the campaign is that they're going to start in a small little village that will called Aldet, and it's in here, and it's in a barony of Axport. And the Axport is one of these old Shieldland towns that was on the shore here. And this is after the war, Critwall and the areas around it, the Scragholm Island and the Woolworth Isle, are in the hands of the Shieldlanders, the Shieldland Knights, the Knights of the Holy Shielding, and they become like a good sect, so to speak. They are desperate. They want their country back. They're determined. They're warlike, fierce, and they will kill anything evil in sight.
Hmm.
Period. No questions asked. So they are now, and thing is, they were almost crushed during the war, and Ayu's turning. Now it's gone
Okay.
some years, and there's not that much easy pickings for Ayus anymore. So I, Ayus is starting to run out of money, and because he was funding his war machine and all the humanoids, they were funded on plunder. and he plundered for years. But the problem is that all the neighboring countries are now either plundered clean or they have learned to deal with IUs, which means that there are no
Right.
easy pickings anymore. So his human,
Contain.
yeah, exactly. The humanoids are they're getting angry and antsy because now all of a sudden they have to start growing crops and raising wild boar and pigs or whatever to
Oh
get something to
no.
eat, and
Orc
they don't
fishermen.
exactly, and they don't like that one bit. So they're starting to get testy and difficult and whatnot. And IUS is basically run out of funds, so he needs to start training. And one of the ways in my version of
Wonder
Greyhawk,
who
yeah,
IU's has to spend money on. Who's getting all of IU's money? Shouldn't he
well,
just take care of what he needs?
no. He keeps all the money for himself. He doesn't want to pay people to do it.
Oh,
He wants them to
okay.
go out and steal money from others. That's how he funded his
Okay.
armies and stuff all the time. And now when
Yeah.
there's no easy pickings means that now all of a sudden things are getting more difficult for him. So what he did was that he simply outsourced some of the border provinces here on the edges. So he simply said someone if someone could come and pay him money, they can actually get lease this area around export and become baron of export and become a
Wow.
province in the empire of Ayuz. And there was
IU's is non-feudal.
yeah, sort of. The borderlands, the hardlands, he will keep
Yeah.
full control of, but he needs the money. So he basically
Right.
leased it out, and there were rich merchants and greedy merchants in Greyhawk who simply say, well, I can come and pay you money and become baron of export and do
That's
trade.
crazy.
Yeah, because there's lucrative things to be bought from the Empire of Ayus and sold, so they could send money. So that's what they've done. They've started this area. So this is now a kind of a
Don't mind on.
semi safe zone. It's there are IU's priests and spies and stuff everywhere keeping an eye on things, but they also keen on getting a little bit of trade and open, so they will not be as terrible as it is in inside IU's real hell, so to speak. And
Right.
here you have the land of the Gensal hordes. So the humanoids have camped out near Gensal, and they get some support from IUs to keep the Critwall, the Holy Knights of Holy Shieldings, at bay. And so there is so people that grow up, the characters will start in that little village as zero or first levels, and then they basically have to
Percentages.
start figuring out what side to join, meaning they can join, they can stay there and try and make out a living as boring locals, which not that fun, but they can also join the merchant guilds or someone in export and start trading and go on expeditions defending the trade caravans and stuff, or they can simply say I want to kill evil stuff and join the Knights of the Holy Shielding and become good knights and abandon it. And or they yeah so there this is a campaign that is very open
I,
ended. They can pick the side they want, and
I
they're
keep waiting for you to mention something. You still haven't done it.
sorry.
I said I keep waiting
Yeah.
for you to mention something
Okay. Yeah.
for your campaign, and you haven't done it yet.
Oh yeah, I was going to say there are secret sides to this. And those are
Okay.
spoilers, so I'm not going to say them here on the
Oh,
show. Yes, but I've
all
told
right.
you, yeah, because there are secret sides to this. That's the open story. And but there are now we're talking Greyhawk politics here, and if you know from real world politics, it gets nasty and dirty and whatnot. And fantasy politics is way worse. So so
Hmm.
so so that means that there are secrets to this story, and there are secret things too. So yeah, so to be found out, and secret
I don't know if
plots
I
and
was
also stuff.
talking that level of
Ah,
detail and
okay.
secrets. No, I'm talking about where your campaign's set. Look where your campaign's set. What does it need?
Oh, well, indeed, Rhennee.
There we go.
Yes,
I was trying to bring
exactly.
that all
Yeah.
together.
Oh, that is perfect. Yes, and I've also
Oh,
and I have now I'm going to dig in because I have Rhennee has a spot in this campaign, so that's perfect you
all
bring it
right.
up
Great.
because there are some small islands. Now we need to go, and I'm going to turn off the heraldry, and we have so export here, and there are some islands. There is an island called
Really zoom
Helmodia.
in there.
There is an island here, and there is a tiny little island there,
Hell,
and then there
right.
is a small little island called Birgit or Birgot. And these are hideouts
Beer
for
gut.
yeah, it's hideouts for the Rhennee. So these have been spots where they hide out, and also I use humanoids and stuff. They weren't that keen on travel across the lake. So these were places where the people actually swam or fled out to, and then they kind of had miserable lives there before they were saved, so to speak. So these are areas that the Rhennee come, and there is a place called Barge. And that locals call that Barge because that's a cove here near the hills here where the Rhenese come and hide.
Aha.
And since the war, because the humanoids, Ayu's troops weren't that keen on patrolling the coastlines that much. And this area here, they actually came there to hide out and do trade, and they were also hired by other sides in the war to actually get people in and out from behind enemy lines. And so that place is in people around in the that lives there now. They call that area Barge simply because Rhenese hide out there. So yep. So they're definitely part of my campaign. Yep. So that one of these interests. So that's kind of a short introduction to the campaign that I'm planning to start next year, and to start playing and start them up from zero level or first level, and start playing in this area, and they can kind of pick whatever side they want. They can join the humanoids, they can join IUs, they can join a merchant guild, go and see the world with it, or they can join the holy the Shieldlanders, and either openly or as spies or assets. So there will be plenty to choose from, so to speak.
The chat
Yep.
wants to know how deep the near div is.
Yeah,
Well,
I said it.
wrote an article.
And that's interesting. I as a map maker, I think I even think about what the surface level is and stuff like that, especially when you model things in 3D. And so my idea is that the Lake Nirdiv is infinitely deep, because
Really?
because I well, infinitely, not well, in a sort of way, because the planet Earth is not filled with lava in my version of it, that where I use my campaign. It's not filled with lava. It's actually because the world is made up of the four elements like air, water, fire, and earth. So the Earth is made up mainly by earth and in various shapes, and that means that rocks and bedrock and so on, and then you have some fire in there, meaning lava and steam and stuff, and then some water and stuff. And so the Nirdiv is an area where water is more predominant, so the Nirdiv can be hundreds of miles deep, meaning there can be watery holes down into it that where you can reach enormous depths. And yeah, so there's like that's a fantasy version, meaning you can have enormous monsters down in the deep there that kind of hunts, and you can have a whole hollow earth kind of version if you want to.
How about a Tarrasque?
Yeah, exactly. You can have a aquatic Tarrasque or something real deep, and I kind of love one of the especially as a cartographer, one of the things that I absolutely love about the Flanies is the connection between Nirdiv, the White Plume Mountain, and then you have Rift Canyon. And when you start making the terrain in 3D, there will be some interesting things. And one of my pet projects that I'm just dying to do is that I want to map the Rift Canyon, the White Plume Mountain, and the Nirdiv, how that they actually interact miles down. So you can have Underdark campaigns where you can have water and you can go down into the Rift Canyon, and you can have lava pits, and you can have caverns full of stuff, and all sorts of cool things miles down. So this area, if you just walk around here, it's more like a boring plain grassland kind of, but from a fantasy perspective and so on, it's full of awesome features. So that's another reason to have the campaign here. It's kind of, it's this area is, and that's what I love about the village of Aldet. In itself, it's a completely boring, nondescript. It's that kind of little town out in the boring Midwest where you grow up and you just want to go get away from it. Meaning it's the most boring place on the planet, and nothing happens. But then next door there are all sorts of cool things. So I want the campaign to gradually kind of grow into the bigger picture with all sorts of politics, features, and so on. So yeah.
I believe you can do that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
No, I wanted to demonstrate how deep the lake is just based off of real world
Yep.
um,
Mm-hmm.
comparisons.
Yeah.
Now, in the original Darlene maps, they have the water's color, color bands
Yep.
that show the
Yep.
depths of the water.
Mm-hmm.
Anna's maps are a little more blended, so
Yep.
it's harder to
Mm-hmm.
tell. But as I did the research, um, 30 miles out from the edge of any coast on the near div is going to drop off to a depth, according to the fantasy maps, it's going to drop off to about 18 to 24,000 feet deep,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
which is crazy. So you're just cruising along normal
Yep.
and then
And
just
then
boom.
yep. Mm-hmm.
And then
Yep.
that depth is the plane of the Pacific Ocean. That's
Yeah.
how deep we're
Mm-hmm.
talking.
Yep. Yep.
And
And
then when you
on
get
oh,
60 miles out into those dark purplish areas on the Darling map, then you're talking about Mariana's Trench territory,
yep. Mm-hmm.
30,000 feet deep
Yep.
and whatnot.
Yep.
And this is a lake.
Yeah, and in the real world, I think the biggest lake is the or the lake over in
Baikal.
Baikal in Russia. I think it's
Baikal.
6 kilometers, like 4 miles deep or something like that. That's
So,
the deepest. Yeah, and
yeah.
no, in Sweden they have one lake that is deep, that is a mile and a half deep, and that's one of the deepest lakes on the planet too. So there are some, but nothing like near Div in the
So
real world.
when we come bring it back to Rhennee
Yep.
and your elemental ideas and there's things out there like Tarrasques
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
there are a lot of creatures out there in the lake and I highly doubt Rhennee cross over the middle of that lake.
And when you look at
Even
my
your
map,
map shows
yeah,
that.
exactly. I've done that deliberately, that no of the routes that you sail are across the middle. They all stick fairly close to the coast. And if people the viewers here that have read the Gary Gygax the Gourd books, the Gourd
Yeah,
they cross it, and there are some terrifying sea monsters that comes
yeah.
to take the ship and eat them all alive. So, and Gourd is using his, I think, ballista skills, or use big
Mm.
crossbow or something, and kills the monster. And so it's so, and there's even an illustration or something of it in it. So there's plenty of canon material for monsters in near div. So yeah, so that's definitely so if you want to do trade and stuff, then stick fairly close to the coast. Yeah,
Where would you put the Isles of Woe?
that's the thing.
Brian Bright wants to know.
I haven't put it anywhere because it was supposed to come and go, or something. But an island, there's plenty of shallow areas too, and you have
Mm-hmm.
the coast up here I've depicted as shallow, because on the Darlene map is also depicted as shallow, and main reason is that this is lowland plains, which means that the angle just continues out into the lake. And then you
Right.
have the same thing goes with this. The southwestern area here is kind of a shallow bay in near Duve and stuff. So that's also this whole coast, and down here is shallow. And then you
Would you
have a little
say that the Isles of Woe are as big as the Isle of Walworth or
no, no, no,
tiny?
no, no. I would imagine it being like a mile or something like that across, which
So
means that,
tiny.
yeah, meaning then the near Div Lake is over 200 miles from one end to the other. So there's
Right.
plenty of more than 200 miles. So it's plenty of room. You can put it lots of places, and it's far enough that you can't even, if you're on a ship out here in the middle, even if, maybe you can see that. I hope you can see my little marker here. But even when you're here, you can't see across. You can basically see, if you're on a ship, you can maybe see a little more than a hex. So if
Mm.
I turn on the hex map here, you can basically see a hex. So this is like, if you're out here, it's more than twice the distance you can see. If you go up on the top mast, you might be able to, on a really tall ship where you have a mast that is like more than 100 feet up. Then at good weather, you can probably see across here. From, if you're in the middle here, you can see from Willip to the Dragon, the peninsula. But the and mid bay the same way. But if you're out in the middle, you can't, not even on the tallest ship, if you're out here, you can't see land in any direction. So it is large like an ocean. You can navigate, you can get lost on
What
near
is
the.
the weather like? Weather
That's the
on,
thing.
on
Yeah, it's large enough to have weather, and I know because in Sweden there is one lake that is not as big as Nordöv, but it's about one third the size. That is about 100 miles from one end to the other, and that one is big enough to have generate weather, and you have waves that are well over like 15, 20 feet tall.
dang.
So ships get lost there occasionally because the waves are high. And it's also in temperate areas, which means that winters can probably get nasty, and also Earth has a bigger actual tilt, which means that the seasons are more intense than they are on Earth in our world, which means that the summers might be hotter and even more summery, and the
Yeah.
winters are a little bit more colder compared to the latitude of near div. So the near div is in roughly would be in the center of Europe, like just south of the Alps, and in area. That means that in the seasons in the winter it might get stormy and rough and cold and bitter and not fun at all, and in the summers it might get hot. So my guess is that the spring and fall might have some storms and bad weather, and then you probably have some good, really nice, wonderful summers. That's my guess from basic understanding of how weathers work on Earth. It's
Yeah.
large, and so in the summer you might get some good breezes and stuff. So I bet there is a whole lot of trade going on from spring to early fall, and then it's probably more kind of you stick to close to coastline and the local area in the winter, and because it's so large that it will not freeze over in the winter. So it will probably only a few coasts up in the north, but it's not that far north. So it's too big to freeze. So it will be ice free in the winter. So yeah. So the Rhennee have probably picked it for a good reason because they can use their barges and go around all year round. It's not like if you
Yeah.
reach Wild Still and especially up in Lake Quag, that one probably freezes over because it's both much higher up in elevation and it's much further north. So Lake Quag probably freezes over, and I've
Chickadee.
read some stuff that this one freezes over and they use ice.
Oh,
Yeah, they instead of ships in the winter they put like big ice skates like sleds and then put sails and stuff on it so they can sail using that on Lake Quag in the winter.
cool.
Yep,
Didn't know that.
yep. So that's something that I read about a bit. So near Div is from a Rhennee perspective is also good because
Mhm.
it's far enough south that it doesn't freeze in the winter.
Let's see.
Yeah. What do
Um,
questions? Now I babbled for a bit, and I have a few more
More
map things. So
questions?
so you catch up on
Yeah,
questions, and
back
I'm
to the
going to
maps.
move us down south a bit and show some
Okay.
other stuff here. Yep.
Well, as to places I've never adventured, going back to that old
Yeah.
topic, I have not really played in the Yeomanry
See. Yeah.
or the Grand Duchy of Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of areas around Q Land, I would
Yeah.
say.
Have you been in the Sheldamar Valley at all? Have you run some of the
Yeah, yeah, Q
campaigns?
Land.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but not really stuff along the eastern side
Yeah.
of the mountains.
Yeah. Have you been running the Vault of the Drow and all that stuff?
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've messed with the Underdark and the Hell
Yeah.
Furnaces, um, Sea of Dust. There's a lot of places I've ran at least once. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
talking about places I've never at least
Yeah.
once
And you
ran.
have run Sea Princes have been one of your hideouts
Oh
or
yeah, I'm
hangouts
all
for
about Sea Princes right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a bit like I
Yo
went to
man,
Elissa, you went to the Sea Princes and ran extensively. Yep. And speaking of that, now I'm going to show a little bit. I'm going to turn on the heraldry because I've created a shield for Sasserine.
Sasserine,
Yep,
a one
and
of
I
the
created
newest
a shield.
editions.
Yeah,
Blast.
normally heraldry like this, I normally put it on my campaign map and don't. But this one, I thought was
Ooh.
kind of cool enough, so I actually put it on the public map.
And
It will be
so
on the.
what's in that red field?
This is Ouija's symbol that are kind of a stylized symbol of Ouija's flames coming out of the skull. So it's kind of a stylistic version. I found a lot of different Ouija's things, and I kind of vectorized it and played with it a bit. So it's the Ouija's symbol of Ouija's at the top, and it's because the founder was a Ouija's cleric named Sasserine. That's what the city is named
Oh,
after.
so
Yep.
you mean assassin.
Yeah, and the iconic thing with the city was a bridge that was actually the entry. You had to sail under the bridge that went between two cliffs, high cliffs, and that
Ah,
bridge
cool.
is there is an illustration in the Savage Tide campaign of the bridge. The bridge was then knocked down and
I
by
was gonna say I played Savage. I don't remember there were
exactly,
a
yeah.
bridge.
So the bridge was knocked down, but it was the what they were really proud of when they built the city from the get-go, so to speak. So I made the bridge the city symbol, and you use the red color of Ouija's for the top and the blue color of the ocean as the under,
Yeah,
and then
brings it all together.
yep, and the symbol here is the symbol of court, because Sasserine, the cleric of Ouija's that was the was
Founded
looking
it.
for the city because she had a vision of it. She died fighting a dragon in this area, and she
Oh,
dealt
what kind of dragon?
a black dragon, I think.
Ah,
And
nice.
so yeah, and she dealt the killing blow by sending down a bolt from the sky or something like that in the story. And her companion was a fighter or cleric, I'm not really sure. I think it was a fighter devoted to court. And
God of strength.
he buried Sasserine and dedicated the city and founded the city in her name. And he was so both Sasserine and that Cord fighter of Cord, they were the founding the father and the mother of the
Cool.
city. So their respective symbols came on to the shield with along with the bridge that became the defining feature they were
Need
proud of.
more epic origins like that
Yeah,
for
yeah. So
World of
I thought
Greyhawk.
that this could be kind of cool to put the bridge as the divider between the fiery sky of Ouija's symbol and the blue
Yeah.
ocean connected and the court. And there are some blobs around here, and they're kind of magic runes, but there is I'm not now I'm going to spoil something here because these
She's
are
really zooming in now.
yep. Yeah, I'm really zooming in. So
They mean something?
these blobs here, they don't really mean anything. They're just
No.
artifacts that were left over when I vectorized
Ah,
the chord symbol. But I thought they looked kind of cool.
cool.
So in any campaign, you can kind of say that they mean something, and there
Oh,
is a meaning, and you can use that in your adventure, so to speak.
I think it would make a cool compass
Yeah,
thing.
yep. So it's kind of cool. So I made a version of the chord symbol for that. So that's my take on the Sasserine, because when you read Savage Tide and the other Sasserine material, there's plenty of heraldry in there, but they are all for either the clans or the families that run the city, and for some of the guilds and stuff.
Hmm.
But the city itself, I didn't see a symbol for. So I created this symbol based
Oh,
on the origin of the city, on the creation story of the city.
yeah. Nebbiolo says that you, maybe even Brian Blumklotz, should do a book on heraldry.
Yes, and we're going to have Brian on hopefully soon, or we can discuss heraldry and
All
stuff.
kinds of
Yes,
heraldry.
yeah, because he's the master of heraldry. I'm just sidelining a bit in
Yeah.
that business at times. So yeah, so that's another addition to the map. And
You said there was more additions?
yeah, I think there is more additions. Let's see here.
Where are
I
we
have.
headed next?
Let's see. I'm going to pick up the notes here. So okay.
Bayvex, you could be right about there being too many deities. I know from a player standpoint,
Yeah, it's
there's only
kind
a
of
smaller pool that are really necessary
yeah,
if you want to be more efficient about it. But
yeah,
then, the longer you play in the world of Greyhawk, then you start realizing, well, hey, maybe I want a god of this and this and this and this. And it just kind of snowballs.
yep.
Sure. simplify.
Yep. And one of the other additions to the map. Now we're going to switch over to the
Woolly Bay.
yeah, and I'm going to use the public version of the map, because if I show the other one, there's a lot of stuff that everyone wonders what the hell is doing there, because it's my personal campaign, so there's a whole bunch of other stuff. But one of the things that will be added are the provinces of the domain of Greyhawk. And
Oh.
yeah, and they, I thought there would be time, because the domain of Greyhawk, that's the name it got after the war, and when it
Hmm.
became, when it gobbled up the surrounding areas, it elevated itself by calling itself the domain of Greyhawk. But it started out as the barony of Celinton, because the Greyhawk
Hmm.
city was simply the barony of the area along the Celinton. And then,
In
but
Great Kingdom.
yeah, that was even before the Great Kingdom, and then the Great
Oh.
Kingdom came in and annexed, occupied the whole
Yeah.
area, so to speak, and then they founded the city of Greyhawk during that era, if I remember correctly. I think it was founded actually on year one, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
that, yeah, I think so, but I might be wrong. Someone in the in chat can probably double check me on that. But then there
So,
was
what kind of heraldry you got there?
yeah, I have a bunch of stuff here. So we have, of course, we have the domain is, and I've corrected the heraldry now, and that's something that Brian Blimklotz,
Hmm?
he pointed it out to me, that I had a link across the two chains, and that was
Oh.
and I realized that was wrong, because it shouldn't have
Huh.
the link. So the story is that
Huh.
I had the old version. So when during during the Greyhawk, um, when he was still under the rule of Great Kingdom, and he was simply a city in in the Great Kingdom, they actually
Hmm.
had a link between these chains. And then when a city became a free city, they removed the link as a symbol that they are now not chained to the Great Kingdom anymore. So they're actually free. So it's a broken chain, simply because
Oh,
it's a symbol
that
of them
makes a lot
being,
of sense.
yeah, being a free city. So now that's corrected. So now it's actually the real modern heraldry. And then we have the
Cool.
Greyhawk River Patrol
Oh,
has
sorry.
this little shield here, the blue thing with, and then you have the yellow and black colors of Greyhawk.
Greyhawk River Patrol.
Yep, and then we have, if we go up north, we have Robilar's shield in his ruined
Uh huh.
keep up here, and then we have another one. It's the shield of Tensor, the mage near his castle, and Mage Point, the village near
I wonder
his.
if they get Rhennee traffic.
They probably will, and the same thing with Elmshire here is probably another hangout for the. And I bet that this whole coast here probably has a whole bunch of Rhennee, and there's a Rhennee camp here too. So there is, and this coast here is kind of rocky, and probably a lot of hideouts you can have,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it's
Yep.
unpopulated. So this is probably a perfect area for Rennies to hang out here. And then you have Salt Harbor. It's kind of weird because near Div is a lake, so it's probably not salty. But
Hmm.
yeah, you never know. But this is a Salt Harbor, and so that's the area. And then in this area, I've actually uh, placed the. Oh, hang on a second. The biggest thing here is this is one of the addition to the map, and that's the meteor strike
Oh.
from the Doom Grinder, the Starcairns, and it is mentioned in Crypt of the Lysandrid, and it's the a meteor that someone sent to try and knock him out. So Lysandrid. So it kind of even jolted his demi-plane. So I had to get that crater in there. So it had to
Nice.
be a little bit back and forth. And one of the other changes is that, again, big thanks to Brian Blumklotz for I had to pick his brain for a couple of hours, and we went
Huh.
over all the stories, and we read through the adventures, and we debated, and I had to cross-examine him because I didn't know that as much. He's an expert on this area. So we moved the pits of Asagzeel from the mountains down to closer to the port of Zarak, because these two are actually connected in the adventure. We
Okay.
shouldn't have too much spoilers, but the pits of Asaxil, according to the text, they are located and connected with the port of Sarak. That is a ruined secret port. And the So, but
I
they
don't
were
know.
put up here on a map in one of the adventures that Sean K. Reynolds wrote years later, and they were placed up here. And that doesn't really match the story where they're mentioned in. So we actually moved them back here so it actually fits the text, not the map.
Hmm.
And then I've added the star cans from the and that the four star cans. There's a fifth one, but that kind of goes everywhere. It's kind of
You
an
gotta
extra
guess what
planner.
the last one's
Yeah.
at.
Yep. So the star cans, and it's kind of interesting because they should have been there decades ago, but they, yeah.
Hmm.
So they're not there. So they're now there properly. And I've also added the rivers that goes in this area from some of the maps in there. I forgot about that before. So that's another set of rivers. But
Cool.
I kind of proud and a kind of a cool landmark to have a huge crater. I always wanted to have a huge crater in the Flannies, and now we have one. So yep. So that's some of the areas, and then let's see if we have some. Then it's a whole bunch of small cities and other
Yeah, Goontaka,
place.
that's kind of what I think too. But you know, it's not probably not a perfect Pentagon. I mean, we're not surveyors here.
Oh, you mean with the
Star Kings.
oh yeah, the Star King. Yeah, this whole
Yeah.
area is really difficult because it has been mapped numerous times, and none of the maps match each other.
Imagine
So,
that.
yeah, so it's and then on top of that, it's like with Asakzil, they even match the text less, so to speak. So the maps don't match each other, and they are completely screwed up. And when we read the text about Asakzil and some of the other places, it was even contradictory. You only read two paragraphs and you had a contradiction built in. So we had to make some sort of general, just yeah, reasonable judgment. It works fairly well with the adventures now.
Lost. Yeah.
Yeah, without being perfect, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Anna's always revising and adapting to new
Yeah, it's
material
kind
that
of
she
yeah.
comes
When
across.
you have conflicting sources, my general
Yeah.
is that I go with the text more than the image. If but the problem is that if you have two text sources, I have to try and sometimes I make some sort of compromise that might work with both stories. So if you read and say it's 80
Cartographers.
yeah. Yep. So it's like
Yeah.
if some adventure says that you have to ride 2 days to get there, and some others say that you walk 20
Mm.
miles, and then I have to kind of make some sort of and sometimes they say it's east of. And some people literally say that that it must be 90 degrees, but east of
Right.
can be anything east of something. So yeah, so there's a lot of these kind of you can read way more information into something than it's actually
Yeah.
there. So yeah, so there's a whole bunch of yeah.
No, it's cool, Goon Taka. This is the kind of conversation that Anna likes. She likes to work things out with other fans.